Says we were just getting this in, and then we are actually going to take you out to Pennsylvania as well here. So just moments away from this update here, as Jenna Ellis reporting this, that Pennsylvania court grants hearing in election integrity case challenging the constitutionality of Act 77. That's mail-in ballots here. So we're hearing the order right now. It says now, November 25th, 2020, upon consideration of petitioner's motion for emergency injunction, the subsequent filings by the parties, and the new allegations raised in petitioner's supplemental application for emergency relief filed at 11:42 p.m. on November 24th, 2020, it is hereby preliminary ordered and decreed there. And so that is important there, as Jenna Ellis is saying, the constitutional law attorney there and senior legal advisor for President Trump, saying that this is important because respondents are preliminary enjoined from doing so pending an evidentiary hearing to be held on Friday, November 27th at 11:30 there. So that is the big news coming there. It looks like they will be having a hearing on this for the mail-in ballots there. So we will continue to follow that here for you on News Now from Fox, but I want to keep the breaking news coverage going here because we're going to now take you out to Pennsylvania. This is a public hearing by the Pennsylvania Majority Policy Committee to discuss 2020 election issues. And
people, I'm going to tell you something. In the black community, everybody hates Donald Trump. I can't imagine why. And I was talking to my baby about various information that was reaching her beautiful ears. And I love my baby, and I don't want my baby listening to contaminated information. So what I tell individuals, instead of listening to people tell you secondhand information, listen to hearings. Get your information from hearings.
Alleged problems. The hearing will feature also former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani as well. Let's listen into this.
Very different story. That's why we're here today, again, as agents of public opinion. Senator Mastriano and his staff have assembled a number of witnesses who will share their experiences with us regarding the conduct of this year's election. We look forward to listening to that testimony. But before we turn there, I want to introduce my good friend, our caucus administrator, and as of December 1st, our incoming majority leader. Congratulations to Kim Ward. Thank you for joining us. Please, Kim, your statement.
Thank you, Senator Argel, and thank you.
You know, I was telling my woman today, I love following behind women in power. I love working. I love when I used to work. I used to have a woman supervisor. When I was in the Army, I had a woman sergeant. Women are more direct. And I didn't tell my baby this, but I'm not into sports like, I know it's surprising. I listen to sports now, but back then I wasn't into sports like I use sports as a beacon of understanding triumph like I do today. Women don't look at sports, and it felt good to go to work and listen to a woman work. And then when you had a male supervisor, it was, did you see the game? Did you see the? So I love it when I hear a woman speak. So let's listen up.
Thank you, Senator Mastriano, for inviting me to participate in what I think is very, very important to the people of Pennsylvania. As Senator Argel has said, we have been inundated with calls and emails and messages in our social media. People are not feeling good nor confident about the process and the results because of that process. The president and his team deserve, this is a president of the United States, not the president of your middle school board. So
Very well said. And that's the thing that just bugs me out about how everybody is treating this man. He is the president of the United States. That is the most important elect official in this country. And we're making a mockery of him. We're making a mockery of the presidency. If we can make it, if the powers that be can make a mockery of the president of the United States, you don't have a chance.
Need to make sure that they have the room that they need to explore every avenue. So when this is over, we know that the process, what worked in it, what didn't work in it, and what we need to do to fix it, and what we may need to do to address it. This has been very, very exhausting and hard on so many in Pennsylvania. And I look forward to listening to what the testifiers and Mr. Giuliani have to say to us today. So thank you very much again, and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Senator Mastriano.
Thank you, Kim. Senator Mastriano, please.
Thank you, Senator Argel and Senator Ward. Thank you for being here and supporting this here, and welcome everybody to this most historic occasion and this most historic town. And what happened here in 1863, I think today we're going to see a turning of the tide, because we have not really heard the truth of the arguments made on the other side on what happened. And when we're dealing with a government and leadership in Harrisburg that wants to close their ears to what's happened during this election, and sadly many in the media that are complicit and want to write off what happened. So for me, on this battlefield and remembering what happened 157 years ago, and especially 157 years ago last week, where Abraham Lincoln gave his most famous address, and I think his final sentence captures why we're here today. He said that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And everything is at stake in what happened during this election cycle. Everything. The republic is at stake. This is no game for us. And for any veteran in this room here who wore the uniform, such as Brigadier General Scott Perry, thank you for being here, sir. Put their lives on the line here fighting for a country, and to see that there's a group in this state and country willing to throw away our valuable and precious freedoms here for power.
You heard what he said. There is a group in this United States that wants to throw away our precious freedom for power. You know them as the Democrats.
You know, for me...
Uh-oh, Rudy Giuliani up in that. Dude's a pit bull, you heard?
And Mr. Mayor, it's going to be a fantastic hearing
The New
today.
York boys.
Despite pleas from our citizens, the governor refuses to even consider that there was any shenanigans in the elections here in our state, a state of 13 million people, and he wants to discount because his guy won that nothing bad happened, and that's just unacceptable. If there's any hint of fraud out there, we need to investigate. Any governor serving the people, this Commonwealth, would put aside his petty politics, and find out the truth, if anyone was defrauded. And at this point here, he's unwilling to do that. Let me point out some hard facts here. We are in Adams County, named after our second president, John Adams, who famously said, "Facts are stubborn things."
Ooh, I like that.
Let me lay out several of these inconvenient truths, as Al Gore would have us think. There have been many allegations of voting law violations across the state, and a governor serving the people would have to move heaven and earth to ensure no one was defrauded. But yet he's not moved to action, and even his Secretary of State, of course, says that there was no shenanigans of great concern. And I'll remind everyone that I was a no vote on the confirmation of Kathleen Bookvar 4 times that I interacted with her. I asked her why are elections in Afghanistan more secure than in Pennsylvania. And she sat there and blinked and couldn't give me a straight answer. That elections are more safe and secure in a war-torn country devastated by conflict since 1979. What is going on here? The place where this all started in 1776, and we can't get an election right? You got to be kidding me here. And so as a result of her inaction, the governor's inaction, refusal to even look into any of the allegations, and to discount the very essential freedoms of our citizens, we are here today to try to find out what the heck happened in the election. You know, and likewise, our Attorney General, our senior law enforcement official here, you know, instead of being focused on making sure things are lined up in kosher, before one vote was counted in Pennsylvania, the day before the election declared Biden the winner. I mean, there's nothing to see here. Could you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot? Would the media be so gracious and merciful and kind if it was a Republican? Absolutely not. And so, Houston, we have a problem here.
I am happy to hear when white people are pissed off. And I'm happy when white people are pissed off because they are going to strip layers. They're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. Black people do it too. but I didn't travel through social media and see white kids cooning like Aunt Your Mama little bastards, little Aunt Your Mama runoff bastards, because Donald Trump lost the election. I didn't see white kids doing that. I didn't see that. So I'm glad to bring you guys this hearing. I am going to be doing some moderation over it. So just because there's certain things that I want to point out to you. So let us continue.
You know, one of the most troubling things in this whole endeavor here, and it's not just because of the COVID, it's just a lack of transparency and accountability. So we're here to start shedding light on the darkness. And then, of course, we have a Supreme Court that rewrote election law.
I like that. A lack of transparency. That means everything is being done in the dark and all that, et cetera, et cetera. Transparency, everybody need to know what's going on. That's not how the Democrats want it.
77 has been painted as the villain. Okay, we could debate that. But the real problem is when the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decided they're going to write legislation and rewrite our law. And because of that, obviously, Pennsylvania, we got a lot of problems there. And that opened the door to all the shenanigans and abuses and folly that we're dealing with here in the state this day. So what's going on here? Thousands of people from across the Commonwealth have reached out to us, tens of thousands, asking and demanding action. They deserve it. And as a result of the inability of our executive branch to do their job, we're stepping in here.
Tens and thousands of people called out and said that there was problems in Pennsylvania, that Biden only won by, I believe, either 6,000 or 8,000 votes.
Co-equal members, and we're going to do our job. We're looking for transparency and truth. There's going to be no grandstanding here. We're after facts. And we're going to have a good layout here of what happened. And you're going to have to decide, good people of Pennsylvania, on what happened and whether there's a strong case to be made or not. You know, the forgotten men and women of our great state feel betrayed by their government. And I'm with them. I feel the betrayal as well. So we undertake these proceedings today to find out what happened, and then hopefully come up with an approach where it never happens again. And the issues are galore. You're going to hear about poll watchers being denied access, where election software vendors refuse to testify before the General Assembly. What do they got to hide? Do we expect the people to trust their government? And we got to earn their trust. And this is no game. And the very republic very much is at stake. Anyone who loves this country has to put aside their petty partisan politics and allow the light to shine where it is. And we're going to find the truth and celebrate it. You know, as a soldier and now as an elected member of the state Senate, I'm not going to stand aside, and neither of the members around me are as well. We're going to fight the good fight for freedom and secure our republic. Too many good men and women have gone before us who are giving their lives here, and to cast it aside now for power play is unacceptable and it's not going to happen.
How would you like to help?
You can tell he is really bothered by this, and he's trying to stay on the issues, but he keep adding that little bit of stuff that he want to say, and we'll be right back after this message. All right, welcome back. Let us chime back in.
We do our great men and women in uniform and those who lay down their lives and gave the last full measure of devotion a great disservice if we stand aside and allow bureaucrats and corrupt politicians to steal their voice and maybe even steal an election. We'll find out. John 8:3. Thank you. John 8:3-6 says that if Jesus set you free, you're free indeed. We're going to walk as free people in Pennsylvania. This is where it all started. We choose this day to walk as free men and women in honor of the sacrifice not only of Jesus on Calvary, but also in honor of the sacrifice of brave men and women in uniform who fought for and secured our freedoms. We will be relentless in our pursuit of the transparency, of accountability, and truth. The time for dithering, politics, and games is over. The time for truth and justice is now. In conclusion, as Benjamin Franklin was leaving Constitutional Hall in 1787, he was approached by Mrs. Powell, and Mrs. Powell ran up to him. We surmise she knew him personally, and she said, "Well, Mr. Franklin, what do we have? A monarchy or a republic?" And he said, "A republic if you can keep it." This is our time to keep this republic. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thanks, Senator Mastriano.
Let us fast forward to Mayor Rudy Giuliani. He is a member of President Trump's legal team.
Stay right here with us, folks, on News Now from Fox. Taking a quick 2-minute break.
Senator Mastriano, I believe you want to introduce our first witness for 15 minutes. And we will hold, to the representatives and senators, so you understand, we will hold all...
For being here.
They just introduced Mayor Giuliani, former Mayor Giuliani, attorney, Mayor Giuliani. He's getting a standing ovation.
Senators, representatives, Senator Mastriani, and all the distinguished members of the legislature of Pennsylvania, we are very, very honored and very appreciative that you are giving us an opportunity to be heard, which we've been denied almost uniformly by the media and by legislatures elsewhere. All we ask is that you listen to the facts that we're presenting and then evaluate it. I can't help but note that we're doing it here in Gettysburg. Over 156 years ago, the fate of our country hung in the balance right here on this hallowed ground for 3 relentless days of bloody close combat between 2 armies that lost over 50,000 casualties. The fate of our republic was really decided that we'd be one nation, one union, one government, sharing values that are enormously important to us. And I don't want to overstate it, but I do believe that those values are at stake, not only in this election, but in the way this election was conducted and in what we're going to do about it. Because if we allow elections in the future to be conducted the way this election was conducted, we will have lost our democracy, our representative democracy. During the course of this election, we've come pretty close to losing our right of free speech. There's been censorship that I've never seen before, of an incredible nature by big tech, big networks, big companies. They only allow one side to be heard, and they refuse to allow the other side to be heard. It's almost as if they're afraid the American people, if they should learn these facts, will find out just who they are and what they're about. This voter fraud that took place, which, as you will see from the witnesses that we call, had several dimensions to it, several different ways in which it was done. The most dangerous thing is it is very, very similar in at least 6 states that we've been able to study. In other words, what we're going to describe to you with these witnesses happened in roughly the same way in Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia.
Wow.
Primary device were the mail-in ballots. You know, there was a fierce debate over whether we should have mail-in ballots in the first place. Many scholars, many experts always felt that mail-in ballots were very dangerous because they're very easy to forge. It leads to more defrauding. We were warned by Justice Souter, among others. We were warned by President Jimmy Carter and former Secretary of State James Baker in a report that they did on how to make elections more secure. They warned us that the one thing to do is do not go to general mail-in voting, because every place it's been used, it's led to tremendous fraud. And that was reiterated, believe it or not, in an article in the New York Times in 2012, an article they have now forgotten they wrote, that explained the same thing. And I think what you're going to find as you study your mail-in ballot procedure here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and then in the 6 other places, this was a terrible mistake. And it allowed the leadership of a party that had become pretty expert at voter fraud to really go wild.
Wow.
So the witnesses we present are going to first show you that in the case of Philadelphia and in the case of Allegheny County, and one or two other counties, the mail-in ballots that were received were not inspected at all by any Republican. They were hidden from Republicans.
Wow.
In the case of Philadelphia and Allegheny County, I can't be absolutely certain, but I do believe the witnesses will show that a Republican never got to see a single ballot. Now, you know how important that is to determining whether it is a valid ballot or not. There's only one time you get to do that, and that's when you separate the envelope that possesses the verifying information from the ballot. The moment you separate them, you can no longer verify. You can't go back and recount. You can't go back and check paper ballot against the machine ballot, because it's a private ballot. It's an anonymous ballot. We want to keep it that way. The only thing that identifies it is that outer envelope. At that moment, when they're separated, gone forever.
Yep.
That's the moment at which inspections have been allowed, time immemorial, in America, Pennsylvania, all of our other 49 states. Several of the witnesses here have been doing this for 20 or 30 years.
What he was saying is, once you open up the ballot, that ballot is now inside of a room, and it's no proof after it's taken out that that ballot came from that envelope.
Never heard of a situation in which a mail-in ballot was just put in without allowing a Republican, a Democrat, even third-party members to take one look at it and object to it, for the very reason that it's too prone to fraud. Think about this. In your state, Republicans were uniformly not allowed, kept out, put in chutes like they were cows to keep them away from seeing these ballots. Never happened before. Not only that, the same thing was done in Michigan, the same thing was done in Wisconsin, and on and on and on. What's the chance that on the morning of November 3rd or 4th, when they started the count, that in each one of those places, the Democrat leadership of these highly controlled Democrat cities that have some history for corruption, and in the case of Philadelphia, a long history of voter fraud. I could show you the convictions. I don't think I have to.
Right.
What are the?
The reason why he said, I don't think I have to, because they know who he is. They know who he is. Let me tell you something. I was telling my baby she cakes, you don't know who Mayor Giuliani is? Oh, can you say mob? That man changed the face of the mob forever. That man destroyed the mob. That's why he said, I don't think I have to.
The odds that they're all going to wake up with the same idea. After years and years of always examining together absentee ballots, all of a sudden, in a year in which we have a couple million of them per state, we're not going to allow any Republicans to see them. The person in Philly figures that out, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Milwaukee, Las Vegas, Nevada.
What he's saying is, what's the chances of all of them waking up with that same perspective? What he's trying to say is, and what he is saying is, they're all in cahoots.
Or is it more likely that this was a common plan that maybe started with the whole idea of having mail ballots because it gives you a much wider range to cheat? When you had just a small number of absentee ballots, like 400,000, you have a certain range that you can cheat. When you have 250 or 2.5 million, you have a much bigger range to do that. So when you hear that testimony about not being allowed to see the ballot, you have to understand it's much more important than just that individual ballot. On election night, when I went to sleep, maybe when you did, President Trump was leading in your state by somewhere around 700 to 800,000 votes, depending on when you went to sleep. That's a huge number of votes. 65% of the vote had been cast. Under normal circumstances, like if this were a fair media,
We'll call it.
your state would have been called for Trump. I mean, Virginia was called with 10% of the vote. It turned out to be separated by 1%. I think we may have actually won Virginia. But that's another battle. Michigan, we were ahead by 300,000 votes. Wisconsin, more. Georgia, we were down to 90% and ahead. What are the odds that they all switched overnight? They just switched by the next day. I think you're going to see how that happened. And I think there are a couple of statistics that you have to really closely look at. I'll just mention them and then we'll move on to the witnesses. We have calculated, and the evidence will show, that there were 682,770 mail-in ballots that were entered into your votes in just Allegheny County and in Philadelphia that were not observed by any single Republican. Those ballots could have all been for Joe Biden. They could have all been for someone else. They could have had no identifying data. They could have been from the same person. There could have been multiples of them. There could have been no name on them. We have no idea if that's true. And it will be very hard now to kind of put them together. We could ask, and you could subpoena all of the outer envelopes. It'd be very interesting to take a look at
that's 682,000 just put in the system without any type of verification.
682,770 outer envelopes. It'd be very interesting if they were kept. And it would be very interesting to see how many of them weren't filled out. But in any event, under the law of your state, which is set by you, those ballots are illegal. The judge, mistakenly in his opinion, said that we want to disenfranchise 6 million people. We don't want to disenfranchise anyone. We want to disqualify 682,000 votes so that 74 million people are not disenfranchised. Because that's what happened.
What he's saying is, because those 682,000 votes were put in without no verification from both a Democrat and a Republican, those votes are rendered illegal. You can't submit them. That's the law in Pennsylvania. And he's saying, that's your law.
By the cheating that went on here. I'll give you one other enormously puzzling statistic. You sent out in the state of Commonwealth of Pennsylvania 148 absentee or mail-in ballots. You received back 1.4 million approximately. However, in the count for president, you counted 2.5 million. I don't know what accounts for that 700,000 difference between the number of ballots you sent out and the number of ballots that ended up in the count. That number, 2,589,242, was on your government website until yesterday. And yesterday it was removed without explanation. I'm going to be very interested in hearing what the explanation is. And I can't imagine you could possibly certify without knowing the explanation of that, as well as the explanation to the 22,686 mail-in ballots that were returned on the day they were mailed. That's a trick.
That's a trick.
How about they were returned? How about 32,591 were returned the day after they were mailed? Another 20,000 were returned before they were mailed.
Holy smokes.
Of course, this is only, I think this is a kind of a low count, and I guess the crooks in Philadelphia are disappointed in this. They only submitted 8,021 ballots from dead people, mail-in ballots from dead people. It's probably easier for dead people to submit mail-in ballots than it is to vote in person.
Holy
You had about
smokes.
30,000 of those.
30,000
Checking the records of the
from dead
cemeteries
people
around Philadelphia. You have 4,984 mail-in ballots that were never requested, and on and on and on and on. Your election, because of these two counties and maybe one other, is a sham. It's a disgrace to your state.
I am so happy.
I don't need to remind you of this. I think I need to remind America of this. The election for President of the United States is not run by the governor of your state. It's not run by your election commissioner. The United States Constitution makes it clear who has the responsibility for running this election. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of our Constitution. It doesn't say that ABC gets to call the winner or CNN. It says, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct.
People, I want to thank you guys for listening. I am going to bring you some more updates on this election, information on this election. It's very important to me. I just can't believe that people are dumb. I refuse to believe that Biden could win. I refuse to believe that. I will invoke delusional on myself. I just can't believe it. Have a good night, y'all.